Hello and welcome to Just Onside. It's Friday, it's 4 o'clock here in the UK. OS, how are you? I presume you've broken your fast, so you can eat, you can drink, and you can be merry, whilst
Don't
we
mind.
still have to wait a couple of hours. Go on, enjoy
Don't
yourself.
don't mind if I do. You bang on. I'm doing good, buddy. I'm doing good. You're right. As you can see in the background as well, it's dark out there. So yeah, we've broken our fast. All is well. Friday evening, another long week in the books. Still some challenges here with everything that's going on. So very much trying to stay indoors. Obviously, we'll go for prayer and what have you. But yeah, all is good for the most part. Other than all that's happening around the world, which is obviously well documented.
Well, I suppose when things are happening in the world, such as they are, you need some sort of relief. And I presume Arsenal are giving you tremendous amount of relief. A really good week, a pivotal week, a season-defining week, I would say. So we'll start at the very top. Both Man City and Arsenal played. Arsenal did the job, as we expected. Man City didn't. So what's your take on the two games? I mean, obviously talk about Arsenal because you watched it, but would you now sort of say that it's because it is in their hands again now, and would you say it's a foregone conclusion because it must be demoralising for Man City to have not beaten Forest at home, especially when they were leading on two occasions?
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess the distinction here is that it's exclusively in their hands. It was never out of their hands to some extent, because obviously they both play one another, don't they? Arsenal and City at the Etihad. So now it's exclusively in their hands. Yeah, I mean it was an interesting evening. They both played at the same time, Ayub. It was quite late here. I hadn't had my afternoon snooze, so I decided to watch the game whilst I was in bed, in the comfort of my own bed on the old laptop and what have you. So both games played at the same time. What was interesting, just very quickly, is both games had 7 minutes additional time at the end. So what happened was, as the Arsenal game was in its final dying embers, Bain Sports and Richard Keys, in his infinite wisdom, decided to give us a split screen, which was difficult enough because I struggle with a laptop. So never mind, then split screen across two games, a bit similar to the boxes we've got now for the podcast. But I was watching and I saw the almighty scramble at the Etihad on half a screen on a laptop. So it was difficult to make out. You're just waiting for the ball to hit the back of the net, aren't you? But it very nearly did. It would have been a huge moment for City that if that ball had found its way into the back of the net, there would have been some insane celebrations, you would have thought, because that was what, 97th minute. It was literally the last kick of the game because it was booted off, and then came the handshakes. Arsenal, Ayub, did not play well against Brighton. Actually, they played poorly. It wasn't that they did play well. And I think this is where you do have to be reasonable and honest. There is one thing which is winning when you don't play well. And I think you're always going to have a fair diet of those when you're going for the title because you cannot be at your best week in, week out. But there is, I would say, some trouble when you play poorly and somehow still find a way to win. Great, amazing, but I don't think you can have a steady diet of that, in my opinion. So I think this fell into the latter category, Ayub. They were very poor. They didn't create any opportunities of note. I would argue even the goal wasn't really an opportunity. It was a little bit of, I guess, if you don't shoot, you don't score, the old adage. But and I think Arsenal need to do more of that. But it wasn't really a chance, was it? You wouldn't really fancy a player to score from where Saka took the shot from. So the deflection, obviously, off Baleba helped. But Brighton were the better team. I thought they deserved a draw. They didn't themselves create a ton of opportunities as well. I thought Gabriel was magnificent. And I think if Arsenal achieve their goals this season, especially when it comes to the Premier League, I think you're looking potentially at the PFA Player of the Year there. It was a huge performance without his partner in Saliba. Headed everything away, challenged everything last ditch. It was a man mountain of a performance in terms of Wednesday night, short turnaround Ayub after the Chelsea game, where again they didn't really play well, did they, Ayub, in terms of open play and what have you. So that's a couple of games now where they've just found a way. Now, so on the performance, it was poor, very little rhythm, very little kind of cohesion, chemistry. They weren't really running as fluidly as you need to be. And again, Brighton, I thought, were the superior team. So I don't think you can have a steady diet of that. As for Man City, they'll be bitterly disappointed, won't they? I mean, I thought there were three games in which they would potentially drop points Chelsea, Stamford Bridge, Arsenal at the Etihad, and maybe the last game of the season at home to Villa, because they've had trouble with Villa in that type of situation before, haven't they? When they
Mm.
obviously turned around that 2-0 deficit with about 16, 20 minutes to go a couple of years ago in momentous fashion. But I thought those were the games. I looked at the rest of the games, but I think you would too, and say they'll be too good for all of these teams. And Forest, much to your chagrin, but I mean, they obviously went there, acquitted themselves fairly well. I mean, scored two
Mm.
wonderful goals. I believe they had one or two other opportunities as well. But City will be absolutely disappointed if they've dropped points now up against obviously Forest and Spurs, who we'll get on to later on in the podcast. Games they should have won. They were leading twice against Forest. They were a couple of goals ahead against Spurs, if you remember, in that famous game where they were
Mm.
absolutely dominant in the first half. It looked like a game between a Premier League team and a Championship team, which, to be fair, next season it might be. But the second half, huge turnaround in what was Thomas Frank's one of his final games at Spurs. I mean, they'll be disappointed. You've got listen. I'm not going to be. You know me, I'm trying to be very honest with my takes. I don't think you can throw the old adage that they've bottled it or anything like that, because it would never fit. That shoe wouldn't fit when you talk about Man City, because the idea is that they've been there, done it, and got the t-shirt. But clearly, they've not handled the pressure of that situation well, which is Forest changed their system. I'm sure you saw that before the game. Obviously put some of their more attacking players on the bench. Went with and they were fairly stubborn, weren't they? You probably
Mm.
Elliot Anderson's probably added another 10 million to his summer transfer fee, but they were dogged, and I think that's what you have to be. It's what we discussed with Leeds at Island Road when they played Man City. They were dogged, they were determined, but Forest, perhaps to your disappointment, they do have that little bit of sprinkling of talent, don't
Mm.
they? I mean, Elliot Anderson's going to go for what, 70, 80 million in the summer, you would think. Gibbs White nearly went for about 60 million to Spurs in the summer. He will move on this summer as well, without a shadow of a doubt. They'll probably pick up what, 130, 140 between those two players alone, Ayub. So there's talent there. Those two goals were incredible. But City will see that as a huge, huge opportunity. And as games trickle down, Ayub, the margin for error is now next to nothing. The interesting thing now is the chronology of the fixtures, Ayub. Arsenal have home to Everton and home to Bournemouth before they go to the Etihad. Sandwiched in between that is obviously a League Cup final, I believe. And City, I think, have played West Ham away and Chelsea away before those two games. Now, I think what that game on Wednesday did, Ayub, more than anything, I think it just means that the crowd at the Emirates will be a little less nervous, I think, for those next couple of home games. You've seen Arsenal fans at home. The Arsenal are not quite the same team at home as they were away. Now, listen, they weren't great away this midweek, but I just think this margin for error a little bit will just free them up a little bit in terms of not just playing style, but I mean the fans. And I think that they could carry them to a couple of home victories, which they'll have to win at Europe. Otherwise, it obviously is going to swing back in City's favour. And I think if you assume that City should beat West Ham, I think, I know you might not be willing to give them that game because West Ham are showing some form, but Stamford Bridge is going to be a tough place to go, for them to get a victory. And if they draw that game, that means that going into the Etihad, it'll be 9 points, albeit a City with a game in hand. And you can imagine then Arsenal approach that game with a bit of confidence, don't they? Where they think, win tonight and we win the title. So they've got to put themselves in a position, in my opinion, where they've got to win the two home games. Everton, Bournemouth. They have to. I mean, it's home. You're playing two teams that you should be. Let's be very clear. It's a Premier League game, anything can happen. But if you defend well against those two teams, you'll win the game, in my opinion. But then you go into the Etihad, potentially 9 points clear if City have drawn at Chelsea, and it gives them that opportunity. 90 minutes to win a Premier League title. That's what you've got before you. That's what's waiting for you at the end of the line. So, listen, they put themselves in a wonderful position. It was a woeful performance. It wasn't just average. It was a woeful performance. You don't want too many of those. Arsenal will be cock-a-hoop. You saw the fans at Ayub in the away section absolutely celebrating, and it felt seismic. It felt big. I'm sure the commentary on your side was similar. That it felt like a big moment, a big day on the title race. Pep felt a bit dejected in the post-match press conference. You would imagine him to be the case if Arsenal had dropped points and if Brighton had scored at the end and City had got that goal at the end. If Murillo didn't go on the goal line, you can imagine the momentum, the confidence, of the players and the morale. So yeah, listen, Arsenal I think are absolutely in the box seat. Yes, 7 points clear, albeit with a game extra, but it's points on the board. Again, they've got a couple of home games now. They've got to put themselves in a position where they've got margin for error going into the Etihad. They have to put themselves in that position, and I think they then have to go to the Etihad. And I've said to you, offline and online, I think they've got to go there and win. Because I think that's what it's going to take for this team in terms of the psyche that they need, not just for this season, Ayub, but also for the years to come. So yeah, huge night in the title race. There's not too many games left now, Ayub. So very little margin for error. City, you would think, might have to win out. You would imagine, and I'm not sure they're capable of doing that just because of, again, those few tricky fixtures that they've got left. How do you see it, Ayub? No doubt you've already put the balls on the cup and the trophy and given it to Arsenal already, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's done. I think Man City, I've said it many occasions. I think Pep sort of used to be a very, very good coach. I think what he has now at this I mean, Man City are still. I mean, I looked at the starting lineup, and that was a very, very good, strong starting lineup, and it's inexcusable, absolutely inexcusable. I mean, I can't believe that that Man City couldn't turn over Nottingham Forest, irrespective of how they play, whether it's a low block, whether it's dogged, defensive, doesn't matter. Quality in the end has to tell. I really am so frustrated with Pep Guardiola because I think he's somebody that I mean, obviously, you've always sort of said he's a great coach, and I've always had that caveat that I think he's a great coach of great players. But I think even now, I think there's a question mark over that as well. I think there is something not quite right about Pep Guardiola in terms of his coaching ability. Is he not able to get the best out of the players? I mean, Haaland's had a bit of a dry run. It just is. This was pivotal. This was absolutely pivotal. I just don't think they'll recover from this. I genuinely think that this is a hammer blow, one hammer blow too many. They've had lots of disappointments. This is a disappointment I don't think they'll recover from. I mean, if they can't beat Forest, who are fighting for their lives, scrapping, yes, obviously that sort of gives you a motivation. But in the end, the quality should be able to be something that should have shown through, and it didn't. So I think Guardiola's absolutely blown it. Arsenal will win the league, and I think they'll win it quite comfortably. I think they're going to drop a lot more points, Man City.
Do you see it like me though, in terms of the order of the fixtures, that if Arsenal do win those next two home games, it does give them a bit of confidence boost. The crowd will be, I'm sure you agree, will be a bit more enthused at the Emirates because they'll think, right, come on, guys, we're just a step away now. But do you see it the way I do, which is that if they win those couple of home games and put themselves in a really advantageous position going into the Etihad, where it's not, I don't want to say do or die, but it will be if you count the points and the goal difference, and if City do drop points at Stamford Bridge, and we've got a long way to like get that in terms of, Arsenal could draw back-to-back home games against Everton, Bournemouth, and the pressure heaps back on them. But do you see it the way I do, which is they'll see the recipe as win those two home games, not saying boost the goal difference, but by winning, you by definition improving your goal difference by two. But then they've got to go to the Etihad and win, just from a symbolic perspective.
Well, I mean, I think when they get to the Etihad, it'll be a foregone conclusion. I think they'll probably win that game, but it won't be a must-win. It'll just be a case of a City side who's thrown in the towel because they'll be too far away. I mean, City, I think by the time they get to that game, I think they're going to lose another game. I just am very, very. I just think that Guardiola, he's got to go. He's got to go. I think it's been a couple of poor seasons, and I because when I saw that lineup, especially with Semenyo, with Gehi, I mean, Foden was back, Haaland's there, so there's so much quality there
Yeah.
that I just cannot understand. I mean, I've got to be honest. If I was coaching on that day with that side, I would have won against Nottingham Forest. I'm being serious. I'm not just. I mean, this is not just a flippant remark because I would have just said to those guys, right, you're more than capable, more than good enough. You've got the ability. You don't need any coaching. Beat that lot. End of.
Yeah, to be fair, you're not a great advocate. You're not a great advocate for the idea of fasting because it's your final few hours, and clearly you're short of. You can sense that you're in desperate need of some water or some calorie intake or something because it's clearly gone to your head. Listen, I mean, Arsenal are. There's been a few twists and turns, Ayub, and if you remember in the last discussion, I said I'm not sure if Arsenal are the best team, and there's the part of me that still believes after that performance. But they've obviously, and we'll discuss it shortly, but they've found a way to grind results out off the back of the one staple that I spoke about you time and time and time again, which is that they defend better than any
Mm,
other team in the league. And if you do one aspect of the game considerably better than any of your opposition, you're going to go a long way
mm,
because it's 50% of the game. It's 50% of ultimately what's going to give you a platform to win games consistently, and that's clearly what they've got. If Arsenal do manage to win this Premier League title, for sure, it's not going to be thought about as the most free flowing style of football, but it will be that they're a stubborn team, they're a dogged team.
mm.
So yeah, listen, they're in a good position. There's no denying that. It felt big, and I just would hope, from an Arsenal perspective, that they go into those home games, be solid, be professional, and if you do that, you've still got enough sprinkling of talent, especially at home. Especially given that there's a little break. Yes, the games are coming thick and fast there with the Champions League, with the FA Cup weekend. Obviously, they've got the League Cup final sandwiched in between, which you'd think he's going to play his best
Mm.
team because it's a trophy to win against your nearest rivals. But it's a huge opportunity. I feel confident to say if they win their two games and they avoid defeat at the Etihad, they'll just feel very, very confident because the games are trickling by. Again, I would argue they need to go to the Etihad and win that game of football.
I don't. I think they can lose the game at the Etihad, but they'll still win the league. Right. There was a little bit of fallout. I mean, Arsenal did win, and that's the name of the game, really, with football, to win the game of football. But apparently not, according to Fabian Hertzler. There is a way to play the game, and apparently Arsenal didn't play the way that he expects teams to play football. And it's been something that's been rumbling for a number of weeks, the way that Arsenal play, and there's maybe a number of sides that play that way as well. But it was, I mean, it's something that sort of critics have often thrown at Arsenal. It's not a pretty way to play football.
Yep.
They obviously rely on set pieces, and it's not a great spectacle for the Premier League. Now, I'm an advocate. I've always been an advocate. It's about results at the end of the day.
Yep.
Yes, you want to play pretty. You want to
Mm.
be sort of get people on the edges of their seats, but ultimately it's about winning things. It's about trophies. It's about pots. And if this method wins you trophies, I'll doff my cap, and that's the way that I approach it. But what's your take on that? Because is it sour grapes? Is this sort of teams that because they can't get results, they are just finding excuses, or is there a little bit more to it? Should sides look to try and sort of make sure that they're playing a certain way, a certain style? Because ultimately, and you've said it before, it's an entertainment industry. So should they be perhaps more focused on playing a certain brand which is attractive?
This discussion generally around Arsenal has caught fire, hasn't it, in the last 7 to 10 days? Ever since, I guess, before the Chelsea game, and then obviously with the Brighton game or what have you. And I guess it's a culmination of the fact that we're in March, so you start to decipher what the potential end of season accolades and triumphs could look like. So suddenly narratives start to get shaped and what have you. There's been many a discussion. I'm sure you've seen the comments from Alan Pardew, you've seen the comments from Simon Jordan, just to name a few. I think every pundit under the sun has weighed in, Scholes,
Mm.
but all the rest of it. I'm just going to tackle a couple of points here because I was the one who suggested that we cover this topic because I think it is topical. It's been everywhere on the news for this week. Fabian Hertzler, just overall, I actually think he's got a point. Overall, if you read his comments before the game, he obviously wanted to get the referees focused, let's say, on the potential time wasting and all the rest of it, and the time that Arsenal take with corners and what have you. So I'm okay with that. Managers have different styles. He feels that he had to go there to try and get the referee a little bit more, let's say, concentrated around those situations. But if you look at the statistics, Ayub, around the times, I think there is context to what happened. I'll just give it to you if it's okay very quickly, Ayub.
Mm.
30 minutes and 51 seconds is how long Arsenal took to restart play against Brighton. So 30 minutes and 51 seconds in terms of accumulated minutes. It's the 11th highest in terms of proportion of overall match time by any team this season. So it does form. It's quite high in terms of the total minutes gained. But actually, if you look at the average start time in terms of average restart time from dead ball situations, actually it's not as high. 195 instances, there's been even more higher average in terms of restart. And the reason for that, Ayub, is, and I unfortunately watched the game, is because there were just generally a lot of dead ball situations. Brighton had more shots than Arsenal comfortably. They had more fouls than Arsenal comfortably. And Arsenal, Ayub, had more goal kicks in this match than any other game in the Premier League this season. So by definition, they just had a lot of restarts. Now, they've also spent 45% of their time in games winning. So if you're winning, and I think City are top with 52%, it's in your advantage, let's say, not to rush. I wouldn't say necessarily to delay, but it's not in your advantage to rush. I'm sure you'd be the same. If Leeds are winning 1-0 and it's the 94th minute and you see your goalkeeper rushing around, putting the ball on the floor and kicking it, you'd be like, man, you need to take the mick a little bit. I mean, we're all been there. We've all been fans. So I think if you look at the total minutes, it's high. But if you look at the average restart time that Arsenal took on Wednesday night, it actually tells you a little bit that there were just a lot of restarts for Arsenal to take. They got fouled more. They had to take more goal kicks than any other game they've had this season and all the rest of it. So do I think Fabian Hertzler honestly has a point overall? And his point was that the authorities need to do something about it, just generally speaking, because you can have a goalkeeper who continues to go down and I don't want to say feign injury, but because you're never going to put him on the sideline for 30 seconds, teams do take advantage, don't they? Where your goalkeeper will go on the floor, you have a little, let's say, timeout with the players on the sideline. So I think, do they need to tighten up some of the rules? I think so. I think there's a few other rules that I'd wish they'd tighten up. But I think overall, I think it will be looked at. Now, in terms of, I'll just come on very quickly to the style of play, because that's a big one, isn't it, in terms of this Arsenal team. I want to take you back because I remember it vividly. It was a Friday night, August 2021, 13th of August it was. I remember that night because we were playing indoor football at good old Blackburn College, or Wilfred's, I think it was, on King Street in Blackburn, for those who know the place well. And Arsenal played Brentford there, opening game. I think Brentford had just come up. So we're talking like nearly 5 years ago, and Arsenal lost 2-0. Jay Leno, the talk show host. They had Bernd Leno in goal, and they lost the game 2-0. I think Brentford had just come up. Second goal was from a throw-in, long throw. Didn't deal with it at all well. And Christian Nogard, who actually plays for Arsenal right now, scored. Anyway, Arsenal lose the game 2-0. They go to Neville and Carragher after the game. And the reason I bring this up is because I remember it vividly at the time. And Gary Neville, in terms of some of his comments after the game, he spoke about how Arsenal had been messed around. I think this was his comments. He said a game of football is really difficult if your centre-backs are getting messed around by the opposition forwards. And that's happened from minute one side. There's nothing worse than thinking your team are a little bit soft. Brentford have looked at them and thought, yeah, we'll have you. And that's the worst feeling. They went to Carragher, who stood next to Gary Neville, and he said, and he coined the phrase, it's a new season, but it's same old Arsenal. Men against boys again. And I never forgot that. I watched that. Gary Neville then went on to say about how he doesn't know if Arsenal have a plan moving forward in terms of the direction that they're going at with the games. And I bring that game, and I bring that post-match reaction because it was men against boys. It was Arsenal then had this time and time and time again thrown at them. You've watched enough football to know that they've had it thrown at them, that they don't deal with it. The good old, a cold, bitter night, Wednesday night away to Stoke. They used to deal with Tony Pulis' teams well. But even after that, they've always been somewhat of a soft touch, a nice team. I think in Wenger years, even in Wenger's latter years, when they weren't challenging for trophies, the rest of footballing fraternity would patronise Arsenal by saying, yeah, listen, you play some nice stuff, but you're not serious about winning stuff because that requires concentration, that requires being resilient, that requires being strong and focused and concentrated and to be resolute in defence and all the rest of it, and handle what teams throw at you. Now, you tell me, Ayub, just very quickly, I'm going to throw it to you very quickly. When you watch this Arsenal team, do you ever get the feeling that it's men against boys? It's not. It's not. When you watch this team, the way it's been put together by Arteta, and he's learned year in, year out about what it takes. And I think it helped that he's played in the league. I think it's helped that he's been on these shows for a long time in Scotland and England, and he's done his hard yards. I mean, he was at Rangers, he
Mm.
was at Everton, he was at Arsenal. Now he's a manager. He's obviously spent time with Pep. He knows what it takes. He may not have won the biggest stuff in this league, but you cannot tell me that he's not had an education in English and British football. And he saw what Arsenal were. They were a soft touch. They had soft characters. He jettisoned all of them, much to the chagrin of a lot of Arsenal fans when he booted Aubameyang out of the club for his tardiness when it comes to training and what have you. And it cost them Champions League football, many believe, that season. But I said at the time, I back him because he's setting the standards for what Arsenal Football Club will be. Now look at the team and the squad that he's put together. Now, of course, everybody supporting a football club, I guess it's a little different if you're at the bottom. But if you've got aspirations to win the biggest trophies, of course you want your team to play well and you want them to win more games than not. And Arsenal are winning games at a higher clip than pretty much anybody else. So in terms of the end result, no real complaints. And I've been measured even when they've fallen short of you. But I think the idea, Alan Pardew argued that it should have an asterisk next to them in terms of winning the trophy. I mean, these are just clickbaity comments that make absolutely no sense. Now, I do believe Arsenal, if they do manage to get over the line, especially with the league, because it's the league that they want. I think if they got knocked out of the quarters or the semis in Champions League, if they got knocked out of the FA Cup, if they lost the Carabao Cup, but they won the title, it's a triumphant season. There's no two ways about it. There'll be some who'll make the narrative, oh, well, they've only ended up with the league title as though that's something super small. But I think that's the number one competition that they want to win after falling short. I think the journey that this club has been on from being anonymous, irrelevant, not dining at the top table, which they weren't with Wenger and then with Emery and in the early parts of Arteta, but he had to build that club and raise it in a sense, not from the ashes, but there were so many changes he had to bring about. Now Arsenal play with a certain assurance, a certain strength, a certain confidence. I argue they've got the best goalkeeper in Europe. They've got the best centre backs in the league. They've got arguably the best midfield in the league. Yes, he's a little bit tired, clearly, but I wouldn't change it for anybody. That's just my opinion. So when you've got that strength, you play to your strengths. And they can have a game of football against anybody. But what good is that if you leave yourself open? If you leave yourself open to transitional situations and you find yourself 1-0 down and having to score 2 and having to score 3 and open yourselves even more. The fact of the matter is the reason why Arsenal are 7 points clear with the game played extra than City is because they're much better defensively overall as a structure than Manchester City. Now, from an attacking point of view, there's not much between them in terms of goals. I think they've scored the same amount of goals, although City have played a game less. Fair. I think City are a better team offensively. I will absolutely concede that. But for me, it starts with defending because to win games, you can't be out of games. And that's very simple. So I find some of the commentary around the quality of Arsenal somewhat disappointing, but I think that's also because I think as fans, as the years go on and as the Premier League becomes even more expensive to consume, whether it's you're attending the games, whether it's merchandise, whether you're watching it at home, I think we want to be entertained. And I think that's human nature and that's human behavior and all the rest of it. They expect our champions to excel because the Man Cities of this world have spoiled us, the Liverpools of this world have spoiled us and what have you. But I think there are different ways to win a Premier League title. I agree, Arsenal have not been at their attacking fluent best, but I think they are, if you agree, are you carrying scar tissue from the previous years? They just want to get over the line. I absolutely believe that if they get over the line this season, I think there'll be a different outfit next season in terms of their attacking potency, in terms of their attacking fluency. That doesn't mean they'll win the title by any stretch. And that's the point I'm trying to make. You may become more fluent, but you may not necessarily win the title. I just think with the scar tissue that they're carrying, with the disappointments that they've had over the last couple of seasons and you can imagine what those players and what that club's carrying at you for the longest time, 22 years, having this soft underbelly that's been accused or that accusation has been leveled at them time and time and time again, that is going to wear on you. And that's going to show in some of the performances down the stretch. That's okay. That's human nature. If they can get over the line this season, for me, it's an incredible season and I think they'll be much better for it. So yeah, overall, I think the assessment of them as a footballing team, as an attacking team, I think you can have discussions and you can have questions. But from a defensive perspective, I don't think there's many teams that wouldn't swap places with Arsenal in terms of not just personnel, but in terms of the tactics and in terms of their setup. So yeah, that's been a little bit of the disappointment nature of these comments so far.
I mean, I can sort of see why sort of people would make comments, but I've never agreed with them. I've never agreed. Sport is quite simple. You either win, you lose, you possibly draw. But if you're winning, I don't care really how you do it. I mean, you can criticize, you can sort of say, right, there's certain ways of winning. No, there's only one way of winning. If you beat the opponent, you've won the game, irrespective of how you do it. Obviously, from a spectacle point of view, you want it to be done in a nice way. So I have no issue, and I commend sort of Arteta and Arsenal because it's something that I think it's a lesson because I mean there are some clubs who are always struggling to keep the opposition out. Arsenal, albeit they've got very very good players, but they're showing you an example of how you do that, how you approach games. So if Arsenal win the league, which they will do, I nobody should criticise. And this asterisk nonsense, you're absolutely right. It's clickbait sort of nonsense. Arsenal will be deserved winners of the league, irrespective of how people sort of comment on how they've played. Now, uh, from a personal point of view, I think the squad there is much better than what Arteta is is making them play. I think you could have won the league in a much more aggressive way, and that's my criticism. It's not because of the way that he's playing; it's because he's got personnel that could play much freer, much more fluid, and that's my frustration with Arteta. But ultimately, it's the prize. I've always said, and I will always maintain, if you win trophies,
Mm.
it's the discussion is over. You don't sort of comment on how you've won it. You've won the league. Simple as that. And he is going to win the league. So, uh, irrespective of what sort of critics are saying, I think he can just sort of show them a middle finger. He's going
Yeah,
to win the league, and I think he's going to win more than just the league.
it's just that it's just such a nuanced discussion. I mean, I don't think Talksport is the is the right forum because I don't know if you watched it yesterday. It was a little bit of funny humor between Jamie O'Hara and Jason Cundy, which I'm sure we'll get onto in the last topic. But I just think it's a nuanced conversation that we have to have about these discussions. And I know that's not the world we live in 2026, are you? But you can argue that this team isn't an aesthetically pleasing team to watch from an attacking perspective. I will absolutely concede that. I mean, there've been games when they have been. I think they've got it in their locker,
Against
as you
us,
said it
against Leeds.
against Leeds. But I mean, it's a low bar to be fair. But I mean, what I would say. But no, I mean, they've got it in them. But I do think they are weighted down, Ayub, in terms of it weighs heavily what's come in recent years, and I think Arteta, in some ways, has been proven to be right, hasn't it, Ayub? I mean, because they scored so early on Wednesday, I think it was a case of, well, we don't really need to overexert ourselves because we have such confidence in our defensive
Hmm.
output and unit that we think that we can keep Brighton at arm's length. And they did, for the most part, they did. Obviously, I don't think they had too
Hmm.
many shaky moments other than the fact that it's a football game, it's 1-0 and weird things can happen. But Arteta will prove the fact that he leaned on his defense and he leaned on arguably his best player in Gabriel to produce a defensive masterclass, and they got the clean sheet because he thinks this is the best way to win the title this
Hmm.
season because City will show enough vulnerabilities in certain games where they won't be able to defend certain situations. And he was proven right on Wednesday night.
Hmm.
So he will argue, well, this is the best way for us to win the title this season. Now, next season, City might go out, buy Mbappe and buy whoever else and all the rest of it. And suddenly the standard's going to be a bit higher. And Arsenal will have to show maybe perhaps to raise their levels. But I just think it's a case of monkey off your back. They're just desperate to get this Premier League title. And I don't think you can be too judgmental or too down on them. You've had three, I wouldn't say near finishes because they weren't close last season, but three second place finishes. It's been 22 years that it's just, I think, par for the course that you're just. I mean, I know Liverpool. If you remember, Liverpool obviously had a few close run-ins with City, and then obviously won the league at Kante in
Hmm.
that COVID year in 2020. But it's not written for Arsenal to be that way, and I think they are doing it this way. I think that'll allow them, if they win the Premier League title, to go back into their transfer market. They'll be able to recruit the best players because Arsenal will be seen as the peak, let's say, at
Hmm.
least in English football, or at least the pinnacle. So yeah, I just think it's a nuanced discussion. And again, just very quickly, they've got the best defense or the best defensive shape and personnel in Europe. So for sure, you're going to lean on that a lot more than perhaps your attacking players to get you over the line. So I think that's where it ends. To be fair, the conversation.
I agree. I agree. And it's also for me. watching a defensive display something pleasing to the eye as well, because there's two sort of facets to the game: there's scoring goals and there's defending as well. So really, it's something that I think if you're a footballing purist, then obviously you'll just say, oh, you want to see attacking football. But if you're a footballing person, there's many elements to a game of football, and to
Yep.
watch quality world class defenders uh, putting their bodies on the line and really sort of showcasing what defending is all about is wonderful. So respect and fair play to the Arsenal. I mean, obviously, the result made you happy. There was another result that probably made you even happier in one sense, and that's Spurs. So we'll sort of segue into the relegation battle. It was a shocker for me. It's a really bad week. I mean, I must confess. I mean, the Spurs result sort of is a little bit of silver lining
Mm.
on sort of quite a grey and dark cloud, because it was a shocker of a week. All the results that I didn't want happened. But let's focus on Spurs. Uh, Everybody keeps on saying it that they're too good to go down, and they're probably, I don't know, maybe they are probably too good to go down and they won't go down. But as each week and each game passes, it's looking more and more ominous. I mean, West Ham are in rampant form. They seem to be, even though they're in the bottom three at the moment, they seem to be they're probably the form team at the moment in the bottom half. So certainly, I've got a feeling they'll escape. Do you think Spurs is going to slip into that relegation sort of zone? And do you think it's a real serious possibility that they will go down? I hope they do, because obviously it means that we won't go down.
Unless Wolves continue to show their form, which
Yeah,
they
yeah,
have done,
yeah.
and put the cat amongst the pigeons with a few games to go. I'm keen to hear your thoughts. Obviously, this is your subject matter expertise and what have you. But with the old relegation battle, but I'll let you speak about Leeds. Obviously, a bitterly disappointing result on Tuesday. Although, I mean, you'll speak to it. I don't want to be too ignorant. I followed the game. I didn't watch the game, but by all intents and purposes, they didn't deserve to lose the game. Let's be very clear. They produced a lot of situations and a VAR and a few issues. But anyway, I'll let you get into that because I'm sure you're waiting to get things off your chest. Yesterday,
Mm.
you Spurs, no, they are absolutely not too good to go down. Yesterday was a performance and a result that made you think that, oh, they may well just go down and they may well just go under, so to speak. I mean, you set your team out knowing that, listen, if we get a couple of wins, home away to Fulham, home to Palace, we're all right. And we said that. If you remember a couple of podcasts ago, we said, listen, they only need to win 2 games. But the question is, which 2 games? Because they've lost away to Fulham, deservedly so. I think 2-1 or what have you in the end. And they've lost yesterday after getting a huge reprieve from that VAR situation, which is just a joke, really, to be honest with you. I just don't. I can't ever get with those type of situations. If it's taking you that long and it's a nose or whatever, I mean, come on, just give a
Mm.
goal. We shouldn't be. I don't think we should be disallowing goals. The threshold should be you shouldn't be disallowing goals unless it's clear and obvious that he's offside. And I just don't think you can be. I think it was guessing game at the end, and it took that long to decide. But you get a reprieve, you get a goal ahead of you. And to be honest with you, I switched off, started following something else. Before you knew it, it was 2-1 and down 7. I
Mm.
was like, what happened? What happened? I only left it alone for a couple of minutes. And I just think when you're trying to win games of football, when you know that you've had woeful home form. I think no team's lost more games from an ever-present team at home than Spurs, other than Wolves. So it tells you where they've been in terms of home performance. That the Spurs faithful have not seen many good performances at home. So you feel sorry for them. But Spurs are you absolutely no, they are not too good to go down. Look at Forest at City. Now Spurs might say, "Well, we got to draw against City at home as well." Fair enough, no issues. But if you look at Forest after a difficult result the weekend before, and that's a really spirited performance that they'll take a lot of confidence in. I think they play each other soon. You'll have to correct me if I'm mistaken, but I'm sure there's a
Yeah, they will.
game
They
between
will. I'm
Spurs
not
and Forest.
exactly sure when it is, but it is. Yeah, they are
It's
playing
very
each
soon.
other.
I think they play one another after Spurs play Liverpool, I believe. So,
Mm.
and they're going to lose that. Let's be very clear. Even though Liverpool aren't pulling up any trees, Spurs will lose that game at Anfield. Absolutely, I have no doubt. I just think the what you don't want, I think, and this is where I think Leeds, and I'm not just saying this. This is why I think Leeds will be fine. When I watch Leeds, although it's a different perspective to Spurs, because Spurs are a much bigger club than Leeds, you watch Leeds and you say, for the most part, they've been competitive this season. They've competed. They just don't have the talent. Now, I don't know if you can point any fingers to any Leeds player and say he should be doing better. He should be doing better. If they're maxing out their talent at you, I'm not really sure what else you can say other than to look upstairs, which I think you'll be fair and reasonable to give your assessment. I think with Spurs, it's a different case. I mean, those players are better than what they're showing.
Mm,
They've got a better squad. They've had injuries. I know they've had absolute upheaval, lost a manager, lost Levy early on the season. It's a club that's not going places. If you're finishing 17th and 16th or 17th season in season, I mean, you are who you are. Spurs
mm,
are a relegation team now. Are you? I mean, one season, I'm going to allow a little bit of some sort of grace, but 2 seasons, 76 games. They're coming up to the
mm,
final stretch of games. Are you? I mean, you are who you are. That's a huge sample size. So, I just think when you look at the teams, Leeds are competing. Yes, bitterly disappointing game. The home games for teams at the bottom, when you're playing teams that you think you should be beating, and Sunderland, although they've had a good season, you've got to win that game of
mm,
football. They've had a bad day at the office. I think they're allowed one, given that they've been super competitive in these last 15, 20 games ever since that second off at the Etihad. Ayub. West Ham, huge result. I think that's the one that probably really hurt you in terms of away from home. Your man does the business
mm,
again in Somerville. He may single-handedly keep them up, to be honest with you. He's that good, and then say goodbye in the summer. And then obviously Forest, in terms of the performance of the Etihad, I just think that game looms larger. That Spurs one. I think Spurs will lose to Liverpool. I don't see any issues with that. I just think they then got home to Forest. I think it is. If they lose that, they're favourites to go down, in
mm,
my opinion, just because I think the crowd, and I believe yesterday apparently it was nigh on empty going into the final 10, 15 minutes of the game. That always worries me when you've got to get out of the, let's say, the bottom three, bottom four. Leeds, Forest, and even West Ham to some extent would have expected to be where they are. So you feel as though, I mean, Forest might argue otherwise, but the crowd doesn't come with the expectations of we should be third or fourth or fifth or sixth. They know that if this was Leeds at the 30 game mark being or 29 game mark being here, you'd have taken it. You'd have said, well, listen,
mm,
I'll snap your hand off. Maybe not the same for West Ham and Forest because they're a bit more in the mire. But, in the end, the point I'm
mm,
making is Spurs, the crowd doesn't seem engaged. The morale's down with the crowd. The fan engagement with the players is at an all-time low. The players look lost. I mean, they've got a new manager. Whether or not he's resonating with the players is very questionable. They've got injuries. They're getting sent red cards. He's going to miss the game at Liverpool because I think they're out of the FA Cup already, Van der Ven. So these are not mistakes you can afford. You obviously had the situation with Romero, obviously a couple of games ago when he got the red card, and he's going to miss crucial games, and they've proven to be crucial, Ayub. So I
mm,
just look at that club, that side, and think, well, what do they have going for them? I cannot point to one single thing that they've got going for them. And in terms of morale of a club, they're the worst of the bunch in terms of the four teams. I would argue even Wolves have got better morale right now
mm,
than Spurs have. So look, I think they're in a world of trouble, Ayub. I think they're going to lose against Liverpool. And I think that Forest game is going to be one of the biggest. I could even make the argument, Ayub, I don't know if you agree. It may well be a bigger game than the final that they played against United in the Europa League Cup because I just think there's so much riding on it. Yeah, trophy's great, Ayub. The manager lost his job after that, might I
mm.
remind you. So it can't be the be all and end all. But Premier League, I think I texted you during the week. I will discuss it at some point, and I'm keen to hear your thoughts. After Leicester winning the league, and maybe the Aguero moment as a moment itself, this is the single biggest storyline that I think there would be in the Premier League in its history.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
think we'll kick that around at some point. But this is Spurs,
Mm.
Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, potentially going down into the second division. Unthinkable when you think about some of the resources and the revenues that these clubs generate. So yeah, I think they're in a world of trouble. Yesterday was a seismic event in Premier League, I think, this season. And I think West Ham, Forest, Leeds will be absolutely chuffed to bits that Spurs, who looked a couple of games ago like might still be on the outside looking in, they are absolutely deep right in the thick of it, Ayub. And I think they're in a world of trouble.
I mean, it's music to my ears. I mean, I was mightily relieved. I mean, it's been a real rough week as a supporter of Leeds United Football Club. And I'll talk about sort of Leeds game against Sunderland, I was absolutely fuming. I'm still furious, absolutely furious. And the finger of sort of blame sort of goes to Fark again. Uh, we played Man City. He started. I mean, we absolutely. I mean, the problem with Leeds is, and you were absolutely right when you alluded to the fact that they're not great players. So therefore, we have to have sort of players performing at 100% to compete in the Premier League, and that's not even a guarantee that you're going to win the game or you're going to draw the
Yep.
game. It's just to compete. Uh, the problem with that is that you have to exert yourself so much because you've got to give so much into that game. Now you've played Manchester City; they're going to make you run around. I mean, the amount of kilometers that these players covered was incredible, and we lost the game. A lot of the players were running on empty during that sort of City game towards the end of the game, and he just this guy Fark has he just is incapable of freshening things up. He just plays the same squad. He runs them into the ground, and it was a flat performance. It was a flat start to the game. I mean, we were in the dominance, and this is a Sunderland which had seven players, first team starters
Mm.
missing. Even the keeper, it was not their regular first team keeper, and it just everything that could go wrong did go wrong. We just couldn't break. It was a low block. I mean, this was very much the argument Hertzler was making about some teams not playing football. But I don't blame Sunderland. At the end of the day, they're there to get a result. However, they can get a result. It's up to Leeds to try and sort of break them down. And we did get a goal. I mean, I wasn't watching the game. I was following it on Twitter,
Mm.
and the emotions. It was, do you know, as I'm following it on Twitter, there's that sort of that tweet goals. So I'm sort of happy, but I'm always slightly reticent these
Of
days because
course.
obviously there's always that sort of VAR or there's always an inspection, and straight away it's on Twitter. The reporter sort of says, "Oh, sort of Arsenal, Sunderland sort of players remonstrating with the referee about offside. It's been referred to VAR." And I knew it. I just knew it. I had that sort of feeling in the pit of my stomach that it's going to be chalked off, and it was chalked off within 2 minutes. Ampadu, absolutely. I mean, he's the captain. He's supposed to be leading by example. But again, tired bodies, tired
Yep.
minds. You start making sort of mistakes. You start sort of doing things that you can't even sort of account for. And he's sort of handball penalty. I mean, a keeper. I don't know. I mean, he's gone down in installments. It's a save that really. I mean, I'd expect sort of 12-year-olds to make that save, but this is Leeds United Football Club. We've got a third sort of rate keeper, sort of starting. We paid 15, 16 million for Perry, who's absolutely just when we thought we couldn't get a downgrade from Melier, uh, we bought a keeper who was actually worse than Melier. So under normal circumstances, Carl Dola would be third choice keeper, but he's starting for us at the moment. So and that's a reflection of where we're at. A goal that he should have saved, and I knew we were not going to score. We could have played another sort of game and we wouldn't have scored. So absolutely furious and frustrated. He started with 8 defensive-minded players. Now, would you believe it's a home game
Yep.
against a depleted Sunderland side? It's unforgivable, absolutely unforgivable. So, I mean, the fans, we went absolutely nuts. The majority of Leeds fans, and it's all down to Fark. I mean, I mean, I gave him some credit where it was deserved, but I'm gonna sort of say ultimately this guy is a joke. This guy is he
Well,
shouldn't be managing the Premier League, and he'll
yeah.
take us down. And I think this is where I think Spurs fans they will be sort of sighing a huge sigh of relief because Leeds are being managed currently by Fark. If it was a different manager, it would be a different story. But just going back to Spurs,
Yep.
I've got a feeling. It's obviously the cup weekend, so there's no league games. I've got a
Yep.
feeling they're going to pull the trigger, and I've got a feeling that they might go for Harry Redknapp.
I
Harry
thought
Redknapp
about that.
comes,
Yeah.
yeah, Harry Redknapp comes to Spurs, they stay up. Simple as that. Because that's all they need at the moment. Just a spirit in the dressing room that just sort of raises sort of I suppose the emotions, the feelings. Because we've talked about it, they've got good players. Maybe that's just what they need. They just need somebody who's going to be sort of buoyant. And
Yeah.
Harry Redknapp, you know what sort of character he is. And my fear, my worst fear. I mean, if I could, I'd kidnap Harry Redknapp and keep him locked up for about 3 or 4 weeks because he is my worst nightmare. If he goes to Spurs, that means Spurs are going to stay up. Uh, West Ham, playing brilliant stuff. And what they've got is sprinkling of goal dust. We've talked about this before. They've got match winners. We haven't got any match winners. Same with Forest. They've got match winners. They'll slug it
Yeah.
out, but they've got match winners who will sort of obviously sort of in those key moments win games. We don't have any of that at all. DCL, he's a journeyman. He's a journeyman. I don't care what people say. I don't care how many goals he scored this season. He's a journeyman. He's nothing special. He's not the sort of striker you need if you're in a dogfight, because he's one dimensional. We need more than
Yeah.
one dimensional. We need sort of players who can do something just off the cuff, a little bit of magic. So I seriously think that we are still favourites to go down. I think Spurs will have a change of manager. They'll bring in Harry Redknapp. He'll save them, and then
Yeah.
we'll go down, and it will be because of Fark.
Uh, yeah, I mean, look, I think it's a bit more detailed than that, you. But I do agree with you on the match winners point of view. If you look at Forest, you've got Morgan Gibbs White, who'll still be good for a couple of goals from here on until the end of the season. You've got Anderson, who's a top player. Obviously, he's going to move on to a bigger club this summer, and did a generally quite defensive outfit. Obviously, Murillo's, I think, quite good. Aina, right wing back is pretty decent. So I think and I think the manager's got something about him, although he may well take two teams down this season with Wolves and Forest. But listen, I think it's going to give him huge confidence to go to the Etihad, a place where you nearly came away with a 2-2 draw as well, until obviously Phil Foden intervened in the final couple of minutes. But that's the worry, isn't it? West Ham have got Somerville, they've got Bowen, who'll always keep them in games. They'll have a sprinkling of something that'll allow them to get some goals. And Spurs, they've got, in my opinion, the place to survive. But the major issue they've got, and you're right about Harry Redknapp type appointment, I think you were absolutely right on the money with that summary, which is the lack of engagement right now with the fans and the players, the disconnect that there is. Harry Redknapp fixes that the moment he walks in. And although he's been out of the game for probably best part of a decade plus, he's obviously, I guess, West Ham and Spurs through and through, so to speak. Beloved, obviously Portsmouth and what have you as well. But he comes in just to do this specific little job, which is literally just lift the club. We just need you for a couple of months to lift the club and get them playing and get the crowd on side. It's a wonderful stadium. If you can get the fans on side, and that's the reason why you and I both felt Spurs should be okay, just because, I mean, there's enough talent there in terms of relative to the other teams. But now the games are ticking by and they're shooting themselves in the foot. You're game in, game out. Obviously, yesterday was a case in point. So the thing I would say about Leeds is if you look at the fixtures, I still think they've got the fixtures to dig themselves out. Now, the worry is that the goals have dried up. Now, that's back-to-back games. I can't remember the game before that. City, obviously, Sunderland, where you've not scored. And to be fair, you've not been hammering the door down because you don't have that type of player, do you? Where you can say, right, go win us this game. Aronson's nice, but he's a nice player. I don't think he's much beyond that. So I think that's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see if he frees up a Nonto or somebody like that as a bit of a streaky player, just to see if he can win him one of these games. But if you look at the last 4 games, you've got a home game, and in addition to that, you've got Burnley, Spurs, and the last game of the season, 24th, away to West Ham. And you just, I mean, I know. I mean, I value your friendship too much, but I don't think your heart's going to be able to take it.
Chance.
If you're,
no chance.
If you go away to West Ham knowing, I mean, you might be, let's say, a point ahead of West Ham, and then West Ham pour it on with the last 10 minutes. I mean, you're going to be absolutely, it's going to be a struggle. But you've got the games, though. You've got the games. I think you've got a game with Wolves as well, although Wolves are playing some stuff. But where are the goals going to come from? That's the question with Leeds. I don't see where they can just say, right, this guy's going to get us a couple of goals. Forest have that. West Ham have that. I would argue Spurs have that. I mean, they still scored a goal yesterday with obviously Solanke, and Solanke's better than anything you've got. So that'll be the worry if I was Leeds. I'd still say the basis of any relegation battle is to be able to compete in a game. And I think Leeds still do that at a much competent level, I would say, than Spurs. The hope from your side is you win your next game of football. I think you've got Palace away, I think. That's going to be a tricky one.
Not winning that one. Not winning that one.
I'm with you. I don't think you are, because Palace all of a sudden started to look okay, and Ismaila Sarr is a really good footballer who I think will also move on this summer. But Spurs will lose. And where Leeds had a bit of daylight, didn't they, Ayub? And that Sunderland home game, I think, is one they will reflect upon to say if somebody
Yeah.
said home to Sunderland with about 10 games to go, win that, and you're gonna create a healthy distance. Obviously, West Ham winning away from home. I mean, these are difficult moments for Leeds. They're right in the mire, there's no doubt about it. But I still think they can compete their way out of this. Spurs still need to show me how they're going to win a game of football, which I thought they would have by now, but they clearly haven't. So I'm still going to pull for you. Right now, if you asked me who's going to go down, I think heart over head, I like Spurs. I genuinely think they're going to go down on you because I, I think it's easy to play against them. And I think you've got enough coaching in the league and you've got enough player personnel in terms of talent in the league to be able to overcome that when you're easy to play against. So I'm going to say Spurs, which will be the shocking story. I'm still going to say Leeds because of those fixtures. Are you Burnley at the end? I think that's a game they've got to win. I still think they can find a way to create enough distance. So I'm going to go with Spurs. Uh, Process of elimination. I'm going to go with Spurs. You're going to say Leeds, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, I truly hope. I mean, to be honest, really, I don't care who else it is. But in terms of form, in terms of sort of the way things are panning out at the moment,
Yeah.
West Ham, I mean, we said it a few weeks ago, West Ham are playing some really nice stuff. They're getting some nice results. And there's a certain buoyancy about the club. Forest have they've they've got quality, and they're battling. They're battling hard, and it's exactly what you're saying. I think Spurs are just hit and miss. I mean, you never know. I mean, as I said, I mean, I think Spurs, if they have a change of manager, and I think they will do, I've got a feeling that they're going to pull the trigger because this guy is not doing anything, and they're probably already having conversations. They've got a little bit of time now with this gap. And I'm sure they've reached out to Harry Redknapp, or they will reach out to Harry Redknapp. The old fella, he'll come down. He doesn't really have to do anything. He doesn't have to coach. He just needs to come in there. And you're absolutely right. The place will be absolutely rocking. It's the return of the Messiah, really. And I think
But
that just will lift them.
yeah, absolutely. But don't you think Spurs? I mean, it's recruitment 101 in terms of the mistakes that they've made with the managerial appointment. And I'll tell you why. If you're going to sack a manager that you obviously had high hopes for in Thomas Frank, and you sack him halfway through because clearly the fans are showing discontent and you're struggling. You're right in the final
Mm,
bottom half of the table, bottom quarter of the table. If you're going to make a change, look what United did. United knew that, okay, it's going to be received in a negative light. So we'll go for somebody the club's familiar with. We're going to go for either
mm,
Carrick, we're going to go for a Solskjaer. Those were the discussions that they were having. I think there were some other few other people discussed as well. But they knew that that will allow the club, just the fans, to resonate, to connect. They're always going to give a former player, especially a top class footballer in Michael Carrick, some time, some grace, because he's one of their own. And I think when you do that halfway through the season, I think you either get a top class manager in, so suddenly the crowd and the fans can get behind him, or you get somebody where the club has some special connection to. Just to, again, because I think Spurs' issue isn't the talent, Ayub. I'm sure you agree. They're talented out of all those four teams in
yeah.
terms of the most talent. Their issue is one of confidence, morale, and a divide between the fans and the players. And now that
Mm,
can be fatal. If you don't fix that, that's going to be fatal. That's fatal if you're going for Premier League titles. That's fatal if you're trying to save. That's one of the reasons why some observers think Leeds will survive because of Ellen Road, because of they'll grind that crowd will take them somewhere in enough games, and I think they have been for the most part. I think it's been a positive influence on Leeds on the whole. I think Spurs they missed the trick. You don't go for a top class manager. You don't then go for somebody who's got a connection with the club, and you get somebody who nobody knows. So
yeah, exactly.
it's difficult for the fans to get behind him. Then when you have one or two
Yeah,
tricky
yeah.
results, it's easy for everybody to say, you know what, just get rid of him. Whereas if Redknapp had come in, and I'm not saying he will, but if he had come in and still lost those couple of games, nobody would be saying get rid of Redknapp. They'd just say, well, if he can't do it, nobody can do it. That'll be the general
Mm,
feeling of it. So I do agree with you. I think they may well pull the trigger because they'll say we got it wrong. We need to get somebody where the crowd just everybody could just get behind him, even if it's for 2 or 3 games, because we're
mm.
fighting for Premier League survival. Stuff that you couldn't even think about, obviously, years gone by with Spurs. But that's where they are. It'll be very interesting to see if they do pull the trigger or if they wait. I think they lose against Liverpool, so there's going to be many negative headlines after that. And then the Forest game. I mean, that's huge, Ayub. That's huge
Yeah,
at this stage of the
yeah,
season.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's three teams in the mix. It's Forest, us. and Spurs. I think West Ham are absolutely safe, which is
No, no.
it's a
West
bizarre.
Ham, West Ham are home
No,
to
West Ham
Man
are
City.
safe.
They're home to Man City. Come on, they're home to Man City. They've got a
This
game
is
at
Man
home. I think.
City who couldn't even beat Nottingham Forest at the Etihad. So this
Okay,
is
but
not.
okay.
Yeah,
If you were predicting that game, go on.
I West Ham might
Hey,
might do it seriously.
give
Might do. I'm being
it up,
honest.
man. Give it up.
I'm being absolutely serious. Right on that very depressing note for me. It's a holy month, so for those who are still watching after about an hour or so, pray for Leeds. Right, and on that note, see you later.